Welcome. So tonight I'm very excited because I'm going to be talking about what to say when a seller actually calls. Now, I should go back in. I want to make sure you all can see my screen before I go further. So if you can see the screen, just put in yes so I don't keep going. And then all of a sudden I go, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. So just put up your hand if you can see the screen. Yay. Okay, perfect. All right, let's rock it then. All right, here we go. Whoops. Let me get this thing out of my way. Whoops, I did not want to do that. Okay. Oh my goodness. I think I'm still on vacation a little bit. Okay, let's talk about Foreclosures Daily. So foreclosuresdaily.com. Love their leads, you guys. I've been a client since 2018. I'm so happy to be doing these webinars. I've been doing them now for about a year. So Foreclosures Daily is a trusted nationwide real estate partner. And when I say nationwide, no matter where you're at in the United States, they got leads for you, right? So nationwide reach, connecting investors, realtors, attorneys, and first-time buyers with high quality leads. I say this every month, but show me, prove it to me. You know, I'm not from Missouri, but I am from Kansas. So show me another company that gives as good a quality of leads that Foreclosure Daily does. I've used a lot of different list companies and I haven't switched since all this time. What is it? It's almost been 2018 is when I became a customer client. So they are the industry leader in business since 2004, and they've become the internet's top destination for really timely real estate leads. And if you've been with me for a while, you know that I like the pre-probate leads. Those are my kind of my baby, my little niche that I've done. And I feel that it's expertise that you can always trust. They have a commitment to excellence and they want you to succeed. Okay, now I want to make sure I'm not skipping ahead too many. Okay, so how are they different? Well, let me make sure I'm not going ahead with these little slides. Oh, there we go. Okay, so how are they different? Well, first of all, their leads since 2018. I have never had a lead from foreclosuresdaily.com that didn't have real estate attached to it. Other list companies you might get, I have been in the situation where I'm trying to do gun collections or art collections or coin collections, and that's not what I'm in business for. Depending on the type of leads that you're getting, you can get them daily, weekly, or monthly. I get my pre-probate leads every Wednesday. I'm working them every Wednesday. And they have property appraisal insights, which I really like because if you are doing segmented marketing, meaning maybe you're only marketing to high-end properties or meaning $1 million properties, like the lady I talked to today, she has $1 million property. So the only thing I do with those is I don't list, and so I don't usually buy those types of properties, but I can refer them. Specialized for real estate, unlike other reports from other companies, their data is farmed exclusively for the real estate market. And let me move my little share bar here, it's all over my head. They prioritize delivering up-to-date targeted information. So you can work with your consultant, with Joe or Angela, and find out, okay, what counties do you want to do, which is what the next slide is supposed to be about. What is happening? There we go. So these are the type of leads that they have. So probate, which is, if you're in Florida, all properties have to go through probate. In Texas, I can do pre-probate, meaning that I can actually work and purchase, buy and sell properties before a family files for probate so I can get a head start. Now, with that being said, even in Florida, even though all the properties have to go through probate, you can still get pre-probate leads and get a kind of a head start on those families that, are experiencing someone has passed away. They have absentee owners and divorce leads. They have distressed and code violations. And you can go back on the divorce. I actually did a webinar about how to work the divorce leads because those are kind of, could be some tense moments when you're trying to work with a couple who are going through a divorce. They have eviction leads, inheritance, auctions, tax slates, lis pendens, and cash buyers. So depending on where you're at, like if you're a realtor or you're an investor, they have leads specifically for what you would like to market to and the counties. Now, we used to do a whole thing about, the pricing and everything. And I said, look, it all depends on number one, what type of leads that you want to work. Number two, how many counties that you want to work. And number three, how long you want to work the leads. So for me, I say go all in and buy a year's worth, because you know what? If you just buy, I hear this all the time, if you buy like a month's worth or 60 days worth or 90 days, you know what? It takes a little bit of time to get your marketing up and running. So I've been doing it consistently. I took a couple years off here and there, didn't do it every single month, but for over a year now, we have a machine going where we just have our marketing going, so that I'm feeding the pipeline, if you will. So it's all based on how many counties, how large the lists are. So it's really difficult, and if they're having a sale. So you could talk to Joe or Angela, and they will let you know. They're always having a sale. And just for being on the webinar, you can get a special discount for getting your list. So don't delay. Call them tomorrow. Leave them a message. There's going to be some contact information before I get done here. So, but they're skilled professionals. And the next slide, what I'm going to talk about is they just don't want to sell you leads. They're going to teach you how to work those leads. So this webinar is just one piece of how you learn how to work those leads. I just happen to be somebody who's actually doing them, so I can show you and talk to you about, okay, well, this is how I do it, and this is my results and things like that. So I'm kind of the real world, but these are the tools that you get when you become a client of Foreclosures Daily. So first of all, they're going to share with you their 6-step mailing campaign, ready to use phone scripts. If you're somebody who wants to call, go for it. How you can have a follow-up strategy. If you want to do probate leads and you want to have an attorney campaign where you want to reach out to probate attorneys, they will give you pre-written email templates for that. They have professionally designed postcards and letters. They can put you in touch with companies that do that. Yours truly wrote a book called Winning Deals and Heels. So you're going to learn more about, my background and how long I've been doing this. I've been doing this a while. And then you're going to get exclusive links for postage, for reduced skip tracing, and then again, webinar training. And, if ever there's something that you want to be trained on, just drop me a line, drop Joe or Angela a line, and you can, we'll talk about what those kinds of things are. If there's something pressing, you're like, well, how do you do that, Nancy? We can make a webinar around that. Now, tonight we're going to get into, so this is how I like to talk about Foreclosures Daily. So they provide you, basically think about it this way. They're the platform, right, where you can get your leads, where you can get your marketing information. And this webinar is with someone who actually takes the leads, and I'm going to show you exactly what I do. And I'm going to share with you, I'm very transparent about, how I get leads, which I get them from Foreclosures Daily. But then what do I do to get my phone to ring? And that's what we're going to talk about tonight. So it's not just about what those sellers say, it's what you're going to say back to those sellers. So what to say when a seller actually calls you back. And getting the call back is just the beginning. So if you're new to the webinars, or you have been sitting on the fence about getting your leads, then you're like, is this really going to work? Do I want to do that? What do I do? I know when I first started, I was so nervous to talk to sellers, like, oh my gosh. So remember this, the sellers, number one, they don't even know you, right? And they don't know your level of expertise. If you're brand new, the seller they don't know that. Now, if you tell them, hey, I'm brand new, then they're going to know it. But if you just send a marketing piece and they call you, they don't know you're brand new. So you already have that advantage. And so before I got into the presentation, I kind of wanted to share a couple things with you. So I do 4 to 8 counties on a regular basis. So a couple weeks ago, we did a mailing. We had 79 cards. Okay, I showed you my cards earlier if you want. These are the cards I use. This is a return one. Last month, I talked about what I do when I get these back. And I was trying to open it, but it was so stuck because I have a good but I want to just show you what the card actually looks like, because people were asking that and I couldn't find them on my desk last month. So I buy these bad boys off of Amazon. Look, they're not fancy at all, right? They're just a plain note card. And then I have a mom in my neighborhood. I don't know if you can read that, but it's a very simple message. It just says, "Dear Smith family," in this case it says Gemini family, Geminis. We are interested in the property located, and then it has the property address. If you're interested in selling, please call me, Nancy and Brian. That's my message. And then I was sharing earlier, I also do a postcard. These have not been that effective, okay? We put a QR code on there. That's where they can go, and they can go, "What's my house worth?" or whatever. Yeah, not one person has been doing it. I've been using these about 6 months. So I would say, these are way more. I'm getting all my calls from the postcard or from the note card. So I just wanted to share that with you. And I wanted to let you know that of those 79 cards I mailed out, I got 8 callbacks, which is almost 10%, so not too bad. But not all of those turned into deals, right? So just because you get a call and somebody hangs up on you, or they say, "Don't call me," or, "I've listed with a realtor," you know what? That's okay, because you know what that means? It means your marketing is working. So if your phone is ringing, your marketing is working. So the numbers I wanted to share just really quickly, those 8 calls were all over the board. I had somebody say, "Don't ever contact me again." Okay. I had 3 properties that were already listed. Okay. But what I do tell them when they call, because they're calling me and they're saying, "Hey, my property's already listed." And I say, "Okay, well, if that property doesn't sell, call me." Right? And I just always try to, say, "I'm here to help you." So first you have to get that phone to ring. So the seller callbacks start with, "Okay, you can do it however you feel comfortable." I have done it all. So I'm going to give you my feedback on what has worked. So number 1, direct mail. I used to do the whole get the dialer, do the cold calling, or just getting my phone out and start calling people or whatnot. But I have found direct mail works the best for me. Now, if you have like 5 or 6 people and you want to just, hit the dialer is automatically, it dials people for you. You can do that. Text messaging, I'm not a big fan. And here's why. I personally don't like to get all of those spam texts. And you have to be so careful nowadays. I mean, you can get like fines for calling people that are on the do not call list. So if you are going to call, or you are going to do voicemail, or I'm sorry, texting or calling people, number 1, when you get your list, from Foreclosures Daily, it does not have phone numbers on it. So you have to run it through another company that will give you the phone number, and usually you have to pay for that. Don't pay for email addresses, because the companies that I know of, I mean, they have like a 30-40% hit rate that the email's even good, right? So you might be paying for data that you're not even going to be using. And think about it, it's more than likely going to end up in spam. So the contact alone isn't the goal. The message must give someone a reason to respond. Now you're probably going, "Why do you just use that blank card?" Okay, what would be the reason for this simple little card? I mean, it's nothing fancy, but it looks like a note card or a thank you card. And think about what people get in the mail. I mean, we get bills, right? Or we get, I don't know, advertisements. So when I send something like that, it's getting open. I have a friend that when he first started, he did yellow letters, but he had a certain message in his yellow letter. And what he did, he put a pencil. He just had pencils with his phone number and name on it. Now think about that. He said they open it because they want to know what's in there, right? And even if they throw the letter away, they're not going to throw his phone number away. So they'll have this phone, and he had something on there about we buy houses or something. So what makes someone call you back? Well, it's a good message, creates enough relevance or curiosity to start a conversation, and it must answer 3 questions. So who are you? Okay, let's just take what I write. Okay, very simple. Who are you? Identify yourself and your business clearly. Well, I don't put my business on there, because if I put Nancy, I'm a realtor, they're going to think I want to list their house. So I just say it's my husband and I, Brian and Nancy, that's who it is. Why are you contacting me? Reference their specific property or situation. Now, when I say situation, I am talking about sales. Let's say you get the probate or the pre-probate, And people ask me this, well, should I mention someone died? No, you should not. You should just state that you're contacting them because you're interested in purchasing their property. So you're looking for people who are looking to sell. And then why should I respond? Give them a compelling reason to pick up the phone. Well, the only reason that people are going to call me is because they want to sell their house. Or the other reason that they might call me is that they're mad and pedoed off, right? Because I've contacted them, not because they even know who I am, but because they're just mad somebody's contacting because they're mad. Maybe they're angry because remember, I deal with people who recently lost a loved one. So when I do the mailing, here's another little tip. When I do my mailing, when I get my list, the pre-probate list, the person usually about 99% of the time has passed away within the last 14 to 10 days, 10 to 14 days. So I'm literally mailing to them about less than 3 weeks since their person passed away. So they might be a little angry because one of the questions that I get asked is, why, where did you get my name? Or this week I got one, did you know Roy? Okay, they were asking me, did I know the deceased person? So none of my messaging says anything about somebody passing away. I just reference the property, but it's very interesting how people interpret it when they get it. So does voicemail work? So here's what I think about voicemail. When you need to have a process when you're working these leads. So number one, who's going to answer the phone? When you have, I have a dedicated number for all of my marketing, and I right now am the person, me or Kelsey, are answering the phones. So Kelsey's my daughter, is my business partner. So you get a call and they leave a voicemail, text mail, call back. So the idea is that you have to have a compelling reason for them to call you. So in my experience, if I miss the call and I try to call them back and I leave a voicemail, very rarely do they call back. It's like if I miss that call, that's it. I just lost my shot. So you have to have a system where you're able to answer the phone. Now, if 2 or 3 people are calling you all at once, you need to have some way to have caller ID so that you can call the person back. So I can tell you got to kind of call a lot of spam too. But think about this. When you're calling someone, it might be popping up on their phone as spam, like a lot of things do. So voicemail alone rarely creates the callback. It works as kind of a one touch in a larger sequence. So think about that. So when I think about voicemail, of all, people are busy. And if I am leaving a message, I'm just saying, hey, the message is that you called me and I'm calling you back. So let's just talk about this. Your phone rings and are you ready? So before you send out those 500 or 75 or whatever letters, or make 500 calls, you need to answer the questions. So it goes back to, so far I really haven't talked about what to say to the sellers, because if you are not answering the phone or you are not prepared to take their calls, then it doesn't really matter because you're going to miss the opportunity to talk to the seller. So number one, who answers when someone calls? So I run into this a lot with folks that they work a full-time job and they want to know, well, how can I answer the phone? Because people don't always call me after 5 o'clock. In fact, last night I had a call at 8:30 at night and I did not answer the phone because I just wasn't available. But I was able to call that person back first thing in the morning, and that works. So when they leave a voicemail and it's kind of after hours, it's late at night, I do have success calling people back. And now that I've captured their phone number, I can text them. So I can leave them a voicemail and I can also text them. And most of the time, most people's phone numbers will accept the text, not always. So number one, who's going to answer your phones for you? Is it going to be you? Is it going to be your partner? Are you going to hire? There's answering services out there you can pay for. And so what happens when you're unavailable? What are you going to do? So let's say you do miss the call. How quickly can you call back? So if you have a day job, and somebody calls at, let's say, 9 a.m. and you're in a meeting till 10, can you go and make that call? So you have to kind of think about your process. And then how quickly are missed calls returned? That's very important. So if you have someone calls you from your marketing and you're not available, or they leave a message, hey, I have a house to sell, call me back, and you wait 3 days, 5 days, 7 days. The longer you wait, the longer the chances of you not getting that house are going to increase. Because why? You're not the only investor or realtor calling these people, or you're not the only one who's sending marketing materials. And then where do you document the conversation? So this might seem like, now I'm not saying you need to have a big CRM, especially if you're just starting out. I use Excel, and I'm just going to show you my secret weapon for always capturing the information each and every time. Wherever I'm at, I always have a piece of paper. I have yellow pads, and then I can capture all the information. And I make sure I have one on me at all times. Now, that piece of paper might be a napkin or a back of an envelope, but I want to make sure that I'm capturing the information. Now, I also have used CallRail in the past, and there's other application. CallRail is you can purchase different numbers, like if you want to market to different areas, different counties or whatnot, and you can have a phone number for every different county. And I used to do this back in the day. And then CallRail would record it. So that was actually really nice, because I could be in the car taking a call, and the whole conversation with the seller would be recorded. So one of the tips that I'm going to give you about talking to sellers is I always make sure I repeat back their name. So even if their name is something very simple like Sam Smith, I'm like, oh, okay, is that Sam, S-A-M, Smith, S-M-I-T-H? Because sometimes it could be S-M-Y-T-H-E. So it's always good to ask them to repeat their name, and then you write it out, and then you repeat back. Same with the phone number. If you have a way to see what number they're calling from, saying, oh, the number that popped up is 817-333-5522. Is that the best number to get you at? Okay, great. I'm gonna make sure I capture that. And then you're gonna start asking them questions about the property. So also you want to be able to because one of the things they're going to ask you is, how'd you get my name? And so if you're doing probate and foreclosures and evictions, you need to kind of have some way of identifying when people call, not necessarily right there when they're on the phone with you, because they might call and you're not at your computer, but you need to be able to have some way to tag people. So generating callbacks without a callback process, you're just wasting your time and your money. So who is answering your phone? So if it's you, that's probably the best scenario, best control and learning. And remember what I said. People say, well, I'm nervous. My daughter said this to me. When I was teaching her how to do this, she said, well, Mom, I just don't know what to say to these people. I go, that doesn't matter. Here's the script. This is what you say. Every single call is basically the same. You're trying to get enough information to even determine if this is a property you would want to buy, a property you want to list, if they are the owner of the property. So there's certain questions that you're going to want certain information. Now, maybe you have a team member or a virtual assistant, and you can have them qualify, document, and schedule if you have a defined process. You can hire an answering service. I haven't done this yet, but I've heard about people who are developing it, but an AI voice receptionist. And I guess there's some way to do it with ChatGPT and Google. If you have a Google Voice number, I'm trying to figure it all out so I can report that maybe next year. But automation should protect the opportunity, not replace the relationship. So even if you have a VA or you end up with an AI voice receptionist, you're the one they want to do business with. You're the one that you have to build the rapport with that seller. So what does your voicemail say? Now, so this is so funny, because think about your voicemail. A lot of times I'll call somebody back and it'll say, this voicemail is full. You cannot leave a message. Or the caller you're calling does not have a voicemail that's in operation, or whatever it is. So think about, if you do miss a call and you want the seller to call you back and you miss the call, what voicemail message are they going to hear? So that needs to be part of your marketing. So what you can do is you can say, hey, this is Nancy. I'm so sorry I missed your call. If you're calling about the marketing, I forget what ours says, but if you're calling about our marketing, please leave your property address and we'll call you back, today, tomorrow, whatever your message, whenever you can. So if a seller calls after your letter and hears you've reached 214-555-1212, leave a message, Okay, they don't know what, I mean, who are you? It doesn't even say that it's Nancy, right? So you want to make your voicemail part of your marketing process. So it should confirm that they've reached the right person, you work with property owners, and when to expect a call back. So the rule that matters most is call them back when you said you would. So if your voicemail says, we'll call you back in an hour, call them back in an hour. If it says, we'll call you back in the next 24 hours, make sure you do that. So that's really the only way that you can start building trust with people that don't know who you are. So before you say hello, you have to prepare. So we've talked, a lot about the different lists, and you can go back if you're not sure which list you want to do with Foreclosures Daily. You can go back and watch a few of the webinars that I've done. But you have to be prepared, and that is the competitive advantage, because I can't stress this enough. Just because I use Foreclosures Daily, do you think I'm the only person in the Dallas-Fort Worth area that uses their leads? No, but I probably am one of the very few that use the leads in the Dallas-Fort Worth area that's able to create rapport with a seller pretty quickly over the phone, and probably one of the very few that uses their leads that really know how to work the pre-probate angle. So because I've prepared and I've learned it over the years, I've learned what works, and that's my competitive advantage. So know what campaigns are active. So I can tell you like the foreclosure list, because a lot of investors use the foreclosures list. For me, it's not the best list for me. Can I work it? Yes, I can. But am I as effective? No, I'm not, because there's so many other newer investors that are trying to work that list and go door knocking and things like that. And I did all of that, years ago. But I want to make sure that I have access to the property owner. I want to verify the property address. And one of the things I also want to do is I want to know what kind of property it is. So a lot of times when a seller calls me, I am not in front of my computer. And because, I do, 100 to 150 cards on an average per week, there's no way for me to just go, okay, Sue Smith came from, week 4, whatever week I'm on. So I've got to kind of, act fast and say, okay, thank you for calling. Because they'll think that it's so funny. Sellers will think because you send them a card that says exactly that when they call me, I'll know what their property address is. And so usually what happens is a seller will say, well, you sent me the card, because I'll say, what's your address? Well, you sent me the card. And I was like, you know what? I'm not in front of my computer right now. And so I don't really have access to that information. Oh, okay, then, but they act like I should just know it because they called. So I do want to get the property address and the communication. Usually they'll say, you sent me a card. This is how it goes. I'll get a call. Hello, this is Nancy. Hi, Nancy. It's Sue. Most of the time they're pretty even keel. They're not angry. I don't get too many angry calls, every now and then. But they'll say, I got a card from you. How did you get my name? And then I go into, well, I buy properties in different areas of the DFW area, and I do a mailing to that area. Are you looking to sell your property? And then I just start talking about, are they interested in selling? Because really that's the only thing I want to know about the seller at this point, is do they have an interest in selling? If they say, no, you know what, I'm living here, I'm not going to be selling anytime soon. All right. Oh, okay. Well, thank you very much for calling. I'm going to update our records. But if you do, if you decide that you do want to sell, please keep this information and give me a call. So that's one way to handle those calls. Now, the angry calls, when I have somebody, a lady, she texted me actually, because my phone number, it doesn't say that you can text me, but a lot of people do. She'll text me, or she did text me, and she said, you sent me a card. And that's all she said. And I sent it back because I knew I'm only sending cards to people I want to buy their houses from. I said, yes, I did. Thank you for reaching out. We're looking to buy a property in your area. And she immediately said, texted me back, don't ever contact me again. Okay. So it was a short conversation, but that's what happened. So, but you want to have somewhere to record what you're learning. Now, I was joking. I wasn't joking about the pad, okay? I usually have a little notebook or a pad somehow, and I'm writing down information. Then when I come back, when I get to my desk and I'm I upload the information, and right now I do have, not really a CRM, it's kind of an Excel. It's an Excel program that I use that I keep track of all the information there. And it's kind of nice because if I have sellers that, where I circle back, they want me to circle back, I just use my Google Calendar. So I make it very simple. So in the first 30 seconds, you just have a short amount of time to build that rapport. So I say that I used to manage call centers way back when. And I used to train people about how to make outbound calls. I worked for a blood bank, and we were calling people to donate blood. And so if you've ever, been a blood donor and you've gotten those calls, chances are they're using some script that I did, because I did it across the country. So the number one is you want to smile. So as you're getting ready to dial, right? If you're making outbound phone calls, or you're taking, because if you have your number, you know that somebody's calling you from your marketing, then somewhere, until you get used to this, you want to smile when you answer the phone. When you smile, it makes your voice just a little bit lighter, right? It gives you kind of a little, where you don't sound like, oh, hey, hello, Colin. No, you want to sound like upbeat and somebody that they want to talk to. So number one, when somebody calls you, you want to automatically just thank them for calling, because they're going to ask you, how'd you get my name? You say, oh, thank you for calling. We do a mailing. Now, I don't say, well, I get a list from Foreclosures Daily, pre-probate, and I know somebody in your family died, a couple weeks ago. That is not what I say. And that's not what you should say. So what I say is that, thank you for calling. I am looking to buy properties in your neighborhood, and so we just send out cards to see if people are interested in selling. Okay, see how I just kind of did? I started rolling and I answered her question. And I reached out about the property and then we mailed to an area. We have buyers, and I'm a buyer. So I buy, but I also have buyers. So I have a list of people who also want to buy in those areas. And then I just let them tell me their story. I let them tell me why they're calling. Now, you can have a script, right? But what I'm saying is that you should practice, and it's not to deliver your pitch. The goal is to understand why they called you. So yes, you're thinking, oh, they called me because they want to sell the property. No, they're calling you to give you what is going on with them in their particular point in time. And part of that is, yes, the house, do they want to sell today? They don't know what to do. They, maybe they're overwhelmed. Maybe, especially if you're dealing with probate and pre-probate, you're dealing with folks that have lost a loved one, and sometimes they're just overwhelmed and they need help with, estate like getting the house cleaned out, or they need cleaners, or they need lawn people. You just need to give them a little space to see why they called. Now, it could be very straightforward. Sometimes it is. Well, I have a house. My dad, passed away, and we really need to sell his house in 2 weeks. I just had that call like 2 days ago. So you have to let them tell you why they called. And you want to listen. So rapport isn't small talk. So rapport is showing the seller within seconds that you're listening, So the trick I was telling you about, or not trick, but what I was saying about repeating back their name is building rapport. It's showing the seller that you are listening, that their name is important. I'm listening. I'm not judging, to whatever's happening. Now, when they share with me that someone in their family has passed away, then I give condolences. Oh, I'm so sorry. And depending on how I feel the conversation's going, I might say, if it's an older person and they were married for like 40 years, they're very sad and they want to talk about their loved one. I'll say, oh, were they sick? Was it unexpected? So I might say, was it unexpected? So I kind of use that as a way to just get them talking. Again, I'm not talking about the house. I'm talking to them. I'm not rushing them. I have been on the phone literally for an hour with a seller, and we never talked about real estate. We never talked. Now, we had subsequent calls after that, but that seller trusted me because I did not rush them. I let them cry and grieve and that kind of thing. And sometimes these calls now I'm talking about the pre-probate, probate. When you're working with distressed sellers, it's a little bit different. So remember, don't rush in there about, oh yeah, I want to buy your house. So understand what they are telling you. So 3 behaviors that build rapport. Now, I always have to work on this first one. Listening without interrupting. For those of us who are like kind of type A and go, 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 it's very hard for us sometimes to just, because we already think we have everything figured out, right? So you have to listen without interrupting. You just have to take a breath, not a huge sigh, and just let them talk, right? And then match the pace of the conversation. So if they're, if they just need to take a breath and they're just, I've been on the phone with people when they've been weeping. And so I don't try to do anything then. I just let them weep for a while and match. And then they'll come back and then ask the next question based on what they just said. So if they tell you that their husband of 40 years have passed away, now 2 things should click in your head. Number 1, the house, they've probably lived in the house for that long. So, you can pick up clues about how you might proceed with talking to them about getting the house, either buying it or listing it. And then, so you want to make sure that the rapport, and again, you just have a short window, but it's earned through paying attention. And sometimes as investors or realtors, we're just go, 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 go. I find myself that, this is kind of my challenge, listening without interrupting, because when you've been doing it for so long, you're just like, okay, I know how to fix that for you and blah, blah, blah. But you have to remember each person, whether you've been doing it, you've done 0 deals or 3,000 deals, each person, to them, it's the first time. So what if they are angry? Well, number 1, don't overreact. But one, don't defend the marketing. Don't say, well, I'm calling, you just listen, because there's a reason why they're angry. Most of the time, I think if you were on last month's webinar, I had one that, whoa, it was like every other cuss word. Now, I didn't answer the phone. He left me a message. I wasn't able to get to the phone, and he left me a very, you have to go back. If you didn't see that, go back and watch that, just that part of it. But, I don't defend what I do. Okay, this is what I do. I know it works. I know that I'm not going to be the solution to everybody who's looking to sell a house. I don't try to argue it or explain why they're wrong, because remember what my card says. It says, Dear Smith family, I'm interested in buying your house at 123 Main Street. If you're interested in selling, please call me. So you would assume that most people are calling because they're going to sell the house, but that's not the case at all. So sometimes they're just mad that you sent them this card. So I don't take it personally, and neither should you. But what you should do is know that your marketing's working. So if your phone is ringing, even if, let's just say you get 30 days of angry, mad people, well, you know what? At least they're calling, right? They're calling you. So don't take it personally, and try to convert an angry person into a lead. Now, if they hang up on you, it's very hard to do. But if you let an angry person vent, and if there's someone who they vent, and you just don't say anything, just, if they're ranting and raving, just maybe put the phone down, and, you can still hear them, but they're not yelling anymore. They will run out of steam. And if you've done that, if they are able to, if they haven't hung up on you, then you have an opportunity to maybe make something happen there. Because what happened is that you listen to them, even in their anger. So listen and acknowledge. So when someone says, don't ever contact me, why are you, I've had a woman call me. She was so upset. Her husband had passed away, and who did I think I was? Her and her kids still need a place to live. And I just apologized. I said, I'm so sorry, ma'am. We'll take you off our list. And that was the end of it. She clicked off. I had another lady, her mom had passed away, and she was very angry, not about my letter. She was mad about her mom passing away. And again, same thing. You just say, you listen, acknowledge it. Now I don't stay on the phone if somebody's like calling me a bunch of names, but that doesn't happen. They're just mad. They need to get it off their chest, and then they hang up. Apologize when appropriate. Just say, so sorry, we'll take you off our list. That usually takes care of it. And then remove them from future contact. Don't keep bothering them. And then just be professional. Be professional. So 5 things that you need when you're going that you need to discover. So when you're having calls. So maybe you thought this was going to be about, okay, seller A calls and says A, B, and C. So I don't really believe in scripts, because if you approach each person that either A, you're calling, or that's calling you, there is a certain format and process that you will always follow, right? So number one, you have to discover, is anybody living in the house right now, right? So one of the questions that I would be asking is, oh, after I get through the initial thank you for calling, and they'll say, how did you get my name? And then I'll say, I'm marketing in this area. They'll say, my husband passed away, my mom passed away. Okay, is anyone living in the property now? Are you living in the property now? So you can see, you can word it different ways. And then if they are interested in selling, say, okay, well, what is your timeline? Because sometimes they want to wait 6 months. Sometimes they're cleaning out the house. Sometimes they want to sell it yesterday. So, find out what their timeline is. And then the other question, which can lead to getting more leads, is, do you need to find another place to live? And it can be dependent on the first question, meaning if they need to find another place to live, are they currently living in the house? So I just had a situation where no one was living in the house when I went to go look at the house, and then we talked about the different ways that I could purchase the home. And so the couple didn't need to find another house, but they had a rental property. So now I'm going to help them with their rental property. And then they had another property. So that ended up just being from a conversation about, what I do. Now this is all over the phone. When was the property last updated? Or say, tell me about the house. So sometimes I'll say, well, I use the word updated because, if someone has never renovated a house, they might not even know what you're talking about, or they don't know what that means. But everybody can kind of relate to, oh, did I update the bathroom? Like, it used to have pink tile, now it has green tile. So you can start asking them questions. Oh, okay, I updated the kitchen. Oh, okay. And so when did you do that? Oh, maybe like 10 years ago. Okay, and how long have you lived in the house? Oh, I've lived in the house 40 years. So then you can say, oh, well, has anything been done? I try to usually find out about the roof, the foundation, electrical, AC, heating, and plumbing. So if they've done renovations or update it, usually to sellers, that might mean that they just painted it or they put new floors in. If they say, well, we added a second bedroom or second floor, I was like, oh, okay, well, did you have to get a permit for that? Did the city allow that, or was that? And then so you see how I'm just kind of uncovering information. And then I also want to know, if we decide to, buy your house, is there anybody else that I might need to talk to or needs to sign any of the papers? So I just found out that one of the properties I'm purchasing has like 8 heirs. Okay, now I'm not going to talk to all 8 heirs because there's one main person, but I try to ask very direct, simple questions so that I can, and they're open-ended. I don't want to just get yes, no. I want them to talk more. And then I'll get into the verification of bedrooms, bath. Sometimes I do that early. So this is kind of fluid, meaning I might, they might say, well, you know what, it's me and my sister that have to make this decision about my mom's house. Okay, so I just heard that the sister now is going to be involved with, making that decision. They might say, the house is empty, we got all my dad's stuff out of it. So now I know they don't live there. So there's ways to kind of listen for the information to get what you're looking for. And then as you've gotten more information, and this might be after you've kind of made a determination you want to go look at the house, then you can start talking to them about mortgages and liens. Maybe there might be liens on the property. So you use the conversation for information you can't get from a database. So in most states, you can look up properties and the tax records and get the square footage and the, like I'll have this question from the sellers, like I'll say, oh, well, how many bedrooms? Oh, 3 bedrooms. Yeah, but then they'll tell me on the tax record it says 2, but they added 1. So that's how you can kind of get more information. Then you want to know if you're talking to the right person. So I had a situation where I got a call from a guy on a house, and he said that he was the owner, and he told me his name was Gary. And so, we went through the whole thing about, I'm interested, and, we decided that I should come and look at the house. So when I get to the house, and I had at least 2 conversations with him, and he kept calling himself Gary. So I get to the house, And this person answers the door, and I was like, Gary? He goes, oh no, there's no Gary here. I'm like, what? So it turns out his name was Dan, that the person that I ended up meeting with. Now, then I was like, okay, well, who's Gary? And I had to go back because he left me a couple messages, and he actually said his name was Gary. So I didn't end up buying that house, but mostly because, well, first of all, he wanted way too much money for the house, but I was pretty sure I wasn't talking to the right person. So does the person calling actually have the authority to sell? So you do have to verify that. Now, maybe you won't uncover that under the first phone call, but just kind of make a mental note that, sometimes there's some scammers going on. So you might say, are you handling the decision yourself, or is anyone else involved? If a seller mentions a loss or hardships, just acknowledge it and say, I'm so sorry to hear that. And then you listen, and you can know something without making the seller feel researched. So first understand the people, then understand the paperwork. And then what value are you actually bringing? Why should they do business with you? That's what this boils down to. We talk about rapport, because if you think about this, how would you feel? This happens to all of us. How many of you are tired of those calls from your car warranty place, or, health insurance, or whatever it is? And the very first thing they're trying to do is sell, sell, sell. They don't even try to get to know you, you don't need a car warranty, right? So before saying cash buyer, understand what the problem they're trying to solve. So you don't want to come in and say, I'll usually say I'm an investor, realtor, and I'm looking to purchase properties. And if I end up buying your property, you don't pay any fees. So that's kind of an advantage I have over somebody, another realtor that's coming in. So I can purchase it as is, but that's not my whole pitch. I want to find out what their financial goals are, what their timeline is. Then I want to kind of find out more info. I want to know numbers. Now I'm going to do my own due diligence there before I start talking to them about as is purchase, before saying cash buyer, understand what problem they're trying to solve. Do they need to sell it as is, or are they trying to fix it up? Do they have a flexible closing, or are they, trying to get out like yesterday? So what timeline works for them? And then alternative solutions, a referral when buying isn't the right answer. So, I don't buy every property I look at, nor should you. But I do try to monetize the lead every chance I get. So that might be I'm referring it to a wholesaler because they have a bigger list and more time than I have for a particular property. I might refer it to a listing agent because that's not something I do. So if their price seems high, I get curious and I ask, what are they basing that number on? So the person that I was telling you about, it was Gary, it was Dan, it was Gary, we didn't know who it was. So before I even threw out a number, he said, somebody told the ARV on the house was about 275. And first, I don't know if somebody told him this or he just made it up in his head, but he was like, well, somebody told me, or somebody offered me $325,000. I said, someone offered you $325,000? He goes, yeah. And I go, you know what, Gary, Dan, whatever his name was, I go, you need to take that offer because I can't offer you that much. Oh, okay. And sometimes when sellers hear you say, you should take that offer, or what I do is if they have that, they're basing that number on, then I like to say, well, is there a way I could show you what houses are really selling for in this neighborhood, or the days on market? So the days on market have actually been a big selling point now because they can decide how long they want to wait to get their money or sell their property. So here's what I call the seller callback framework. And I know you all get a copy of the recording, but if you want this, you can email this and I have like a little form you can use. But so the seller callback framework goes like this. Before the call, you want to know your lead source, know your campaign, and have the data ready. So that's your Foreclosures Daily list, getting it all situated in terms of segmentation, who's going to write the cards, or who's going to do like when I do the postcards, I don't write them out. I do labels. I print labels. So if you want, this is an easy kind of shortcut, and maybe you'll have better success with that. So you have to kind of get your framework together. And then in the first 30 seconds, and before you do that, of course, you're going to want to know who's going to be answering the phone. And then how are you going to build that rapport in the first 30 seconds? Well, by thanking the person, open-ended questions, and listen, listen, listen. And then you want to discover what their situation is. Why did they call you, right? It wasn't always to sell the property. Maybe it was just a rant. Maybe it was to find out why you sent them a card. But sometimes it's just to find out what their options are. And then you need to find out what their timing, who the decision makers are, and what is their motivation. Because if you can find out what their motivation is for selling, that kind of gives you an advantage over the competition. And then you should decide and then take next steps. So after you've talked to them, so normally what I do is after I've talked to someone, I don't make the appointment until I've kind of run my numbers. So usually what will happen is I will have a conversation with the seller. Then I'll go and say, okay, let me take all this information. I'm going to give you a call back in 30 minutes, 45 minutes, whatever my time frame is, because I want to put some solid numbers together for you. Or if I'm sitting at my computer, I'll do it while I'm talking to them. But the idea is I want to give them a range of what I'm thinking without seeing the property, because I want to know if we're even in the same ballpark. Because if they're thinking that they're going to sell very, very high, then I don't want to waste my time going to a property that I'm going to have to, try to talk them down off of that number. So now if I hear a huge number, then I want to know, well, where'd you get that number? And they'll say, well, I searched on Zillow, or my cousin's a realtor, or whatever. I want to find out where they got that information. So maybe I'll have a follow-up call or a follow-up appointment. Maybe they're a not now, or maybe it's not a right fit. Like the call I had right before here was for a luxury property. They already have a realtor, so I'm not going to refer it. And there's no reason for me to go look at the property because it's not in my buy box, meaning I don't buy $950,000 properties to make into a rental or a short-term rental. So remember, the callback is not the deal, right? It's permission for you to start having a conversation to see if you have a deal. Now, coming to a close here, guys. It's 5:53. So first off, thank you very much for hanging in with me. I'm going to go to the questions here in a second. So if you want the seller callback checklist that I have, just send me an email at nancy@kbnhomes.com, subject checklist. They won't be going out tonight. I'll send them out to you tomorrow. And then just follow along. Do follow me on YouTube. You can find it under Money Making Mamas. That's Makin, M-A-K-I-N, or my Instagram account. So remember, the community of ForeclosuresDaily.com is here. The opportunities are here, and the only missing piece is you. And I want to say happy National Fajita Day. So if you haven't had dinner, go have some fajitas. Thank you for watching. Remember, done is better than perfect. And our next webinar, September 15th, and that's the biggest mistakes after you get the lead. So I'm going to talk about like what happens when you actually went and talked to the seller or whatnot. So, okay, I'm going to stop the share because I want to see if anybody had any questions. Okay, let me go. More. Q&A. Here we go. I'm on my phone trying to figure out. Okay, Eric, I hope you did. So, hey, Joe. 98 degrees with humidity. Oh my gosh, that feels so hot. It was oppressive. Hi, Nancy. I know I just hopped on and I apologize because I have to go. Oh, okay, Eric, no problem. I could not see the card. Is there any way you can share? You know what? I can't really share. Let me see if I can do it better now that I'm, let me do this. Can you, okay, here's the plain card, right? And then, and it's just plain. I get them on Amazon. They're like 16 cents. And then here's the message. Whoa. And they come with their own little envelopes. And this one came back. And then I just bought a stamp for the return address. That's my business address. I don't put my, you can see it's not even that fancy. And this is the postcard. Now, as I was saying, the postcard has not been as effective. And I thought, oh, I'm going to put a QR code on there. And, you know, because we do try to mix it up a little bit. So I put a QR code on there thinking people would just want to like, oh, say, what's my house worth? And that did not work for the pre-probate, okay? And this says local mother-daughter team helping families since 2006. If your house needs repairs, inherited a property vacant, it's pretty much like the We Buy, ugly houses. We kind of modeled it after that. But I can tell you, we've been using these for like 6 months. I haven't gotten one call from these. So I don't know. I don't know if it's just, maybe it looks too cheesy. I don't know. So, okay, I'm going to go back to Q&A. Looks good. How would you approach this okay, Chris, if you are focused on listing properties and you do work with some cash buyers, but you are not a buyer yourself? Okay, so here's what I would do, Krista. So, because I'm a realtor too, I just choose not to list. So let me give you a couple examples. So when you have the Foreclosures Dailies list, you can segment them. So let's say that when I say segment them, I'm talking about the property appraisal, because it'll tell you what the property value of the property is. So let's say that I'm an investor, and normally most investors, they like to buy properties $250,000 and below. So one of your marketing campaigns would be for your investor buyers, right? So you need to create a list of clients that are investors. So then you're going to do your marketing, and as calls come in and you have someone that's interested, now you represent an investor. So you could earn a commission if the investor purchased the property. So that's one way. The other way is as you're talking to these sellers, you can determine if they want to list or they want to sell fast. So you can still have that conversation. It's all about it's not that you want to buy their property or not. It's what they want. What do they want to get at? Do they want to sell it? Do they want to get, retail price? Do they want to put it on the market? So in our area, in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, there's a lot of properties sitting on the market right now. So I want to talk to the seller about what the time frame is. So if they, have 6 months to wait, great, then we can list the property. Now, if I was a listing agent, I could just go and list the property. So you can do both. You can create your cash buyers list or your investor list and still take these phone calls, and you can determine what the seller's wanting to do, and then you can put the two together. So I hope I, answered that question for you. I'm going to put my glasses on. Oh, here we have another one. All right. Nancy, I only call probates, sending cards. I am not buying. So what would you suggest for okay, I only call probates, sending cards. I am not buying. Oh, again, it's not about you buying their house. So let me make this very, very clear. If you approach it to just find out from the seller what their end goal is. So let's just say I don't buy houses, okay? But you have buyers that are looking for houses, right? So it's kind of a two-prong approach. Number one, you're looking for sellers who want to sell either fast or they want to list it, right? You are not going to buy the house, but in your other bucket, so to speak, you have buyers. So you have buyers. So your message is, I have buyers looking for properties in your area. See how I'm just saying that? I didn't say I'm doing the buying. I'm just saying I have buyers. Now, I do say I buy because I do. But I'll say I have buyers and I also buy. So you could do, if you're not buying, then just say, I have buyers who are looking for houses in your area, in your neighborhood, so do you see how you can still have that same conversation, find out their timeline, find out, well, should I list this property? But you also have to have a list of investors that can close on it. So let me clarify this one more time. Let me give you an example. So I had a property that I went and looked at, and it could be a flip, but I don't want to flip it. It's like too far from my house. So what I did is I put it under contract, and I wasn't quite sure what I was going to do with it, but I ended up wholesaling it. Now, I'm not a wholesaler. I don't wholesale a lot, but what I did is and it's also in an area that's just, again, it's too far. So what I did is I went on the MLS And I said, okay, let me pull all the properties that have sold in the last year. And I called the realtor that sold the property within this zip code / area. I went like about a mile out from where the subject property was, and I did a double close. So I bought the property, right? I got transactional funding, meaning I was able to just, get a little bit of money to close on the property, and then on the same day I sold it to somebody else. So I wholesaled it. Does that make sense? But I didn't have a strong buyer's list because this hadn't happened to me for a long time. So, and I had to create a buyer's list really fast. So I simply called realtors in the area that had sold, that had closed on a property. I called the listing agent and I called the sales agent on both sides. Now, sometimes they don't get what I'm doing, and that's okay. So I only had to call like 20 agents. And after the first 5, I got multiple offers on my listing, or not listing, but the property. Let me be clear. I'm not mailing cards to probate. You're just calling them, right? Okay, I understand. I have a lot of investors. Would you suggest to send a mailer prior to me calling first, or do you do both? Yes, to kind of warm them up. So you're saying a mailer to the probate people, send them, and then yes, that's another technique. You could send them a letter and then follow up with a phone call. Say, hey, I'm Jacqueline. I mailed you this. I'm assuming you have some kind of packet for them of information. Yes, that's a very good way to, number one, kind of warm it up, right? Because you have a reason for calling. You want to make sure they got your marketing materials. So yes, that would work. So, all right, guys, I have 6:02 and I got to sign off. So thank you again for being with me tonight. I'll see you next month. Have a good one. Stay cool, and call your representative with Foreclosures Daily and get going on those leads. See you later.